Hi, and welcome, amazing human, to this week's episode. I'm super excited to have John Templeton on the podcast this week. And if you don't already know who he is, perhaps you're living under a rock, because he is Australia's #1 life coach. He is a high performance wealth and mindset coach. He is an ex-special forces and celebrity trainer. The man has a world record, a Guinness World Record, and he is also a speaker. So it is an honor and a privilege to have you on the show today, John. Thank you for joining me.
Marina, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and privilege to be here, and to anyone listening as well, to have you tuning in. It's also, I'm very grateful, very, very grateful.
Yeah, always grateful for your time and energy, guys, and for dropping in. And I know John and I pre-podcast today really talked about wanting to make this episode in particular tangible, actionable. Both of us are very pro taking action as opposed to theology and theorizing a lot of things, because nothing changes if nothing changes. So whilst, John, you have a wealth of knowledge in lots of different spaces, we did decide today to focus on the aspect of wealth mindset and money mastery, which I'm really excited about because you're the first guest I've had on the series to talk about that. And I think now more than ever, with the economy doing what it's doing and things happening, I'm just so excited for us to provide value. But before we get into that, can you just share with us, firstly, 2 questions. One is, if you had an animal that best represented your spirit, your energy, your way of being, what animal would that be?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I think many other people have multiple personalities. And so it would be a split between a dolphin and an eagle.
A dolphin and an eagle. That's awesome. And the dolphin because?
Just freedom, very free. And the eagle because very focused.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, and if you could have one superpower, what superpower would you choose to have and why?
That is a great question. Probably, I think flying. I really do think flying. That would just be so much fun. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. So now tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be all of the things that I mentioned in the intro, like, in wherever you want to start, and however you want to get there. We're just going to absorb your magic.
For sure. Okay. I'll keep it relatively brief. I was expelled from school when I was 16. So I wasn't, I wasn't, academically great. I failed every subject and then got expelled. My friends and I were smoking a lot of drugs, and that included like methamphetamines and crack as well. It was pretty hectic. And a few of them committed suicide. And that's when I was like, this is not healthy. Like I had awareness, and I was like, this isn't healthy. And I talked to my dad on the phone one day, and he lived in England. I lived in New Zealand, and his morals are very high. And I just compared myself. I was like, what am I doing with my life? And so I decided that something had to shift. I didn't know what. I was just open to like change. The next day I talked to an old friend. He was joining the army. I said, get out of town. I'm coming with you. So I decided to join the army. Now, that was in 2003. I want to fast forward. 2006, I get deployed to East Timor. And at the time, I was into my fitness and training, and I was, reading bodybuilding magazines. And a friend came and gave me a book. And the book was about wealth and finance. And I was like, nah, man, like, I don't want to read that. Just show me where the weights are at. And I want to go to the gym and train. And it's pretty boring over in East Timor. I was saving a lot of money because rent and, food and accommodation was covered. And so I was like, when I get home, I just wanted to be the cool kid. I wanted to buy a fast car, sound system, big wheels. That's like a very military thing. So that's what I wanted to do. But I eventually caved, and I read this book. And I can honestly say that this was when my life truly... We're always making little decisions that affect our destiny, but this one had the greatest impact without question. And I read the book, and it said, cars are a bad thing to buy. And it said, ultimately buy something that's going to go up in value, like property. It talked about business and all other things, but property. I was like, okay, my mum's kind of mentioned that. Maybe I'll do this. I came home from East Timor, and I was like, right, I'm going to buy a house. So I bought a house. And this is a guy that was expelled from school with zero... I didn't even know where to start. I went to the real estate agent and said, I want to buy a house, Yeah, we'll try this one. So I had no idea. And for anyone watching, you don't actually have to really know what you're doing. You just got to get going, okay? And we're going to dive into that more. And so I just got going and bought a house. I was drinking a lot of alcohol at the time. I was a soldier in the army, partying. We trashed the house. We smashed the windows. Like it was hectic. It was wild. And after 6 months, I said, the stress of paying a mortgage, the stress of bills, I just wanted to go back to the military camp where I had a little square box room and I had to walk 10 meters and there was food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Everything was taken care of. And so I sold the house and I made $30,000. And that was the first time it was like a really, really positive slap in the face. I was like, what just happened? That's more money than I've made in a while. And I did nothing. In fact, I got paid lots of money to ultimately get drunk and smash a house up. And to walk away with $30,000, that's when my life changed. Because I went on a around the world trip. I reinvested it, which has led me to, financial abundance. And so just that one book that I didn't even want to read, that little decision to buy a house has transformed. We can't lie. Money helps. It freaking helps. Less stress. I get food cooked for me now. Like it just helps. And so that's when it clicked in me that one, I could become wealthy because there was like physical evidence, and two, that it helps and why not have it? So that's really what started me on the wealth journey. Now to fill the gap between sort of now and then, I competed at bodybuilding. I won New Zealand Nationals. Like you said, Guinness World Record. I competed at CrossFit. I've built 2 6-figure businesses, sold them. I've done a lot in a lot of different fields, whether it's health and fitness, coaching. But right now where I'm at is I coach people with high performance mindset, and I love diving into wealth, which we're going to do today, because people, if you're listening, if you haven't got bored of my story already, it is an area that can transform your life. And honestly, it is not that difficult. Okay. So that's pretty much, yeah.
So much of what, there's so many things I wanted to just query or have you expand upon. First of all, you can't leave us hanging. What was the book?
Oh, you know what? I'm sure you can guess. Do you know what it is?
Was it Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Or
yeah.
Was it really? I'm just guessing because that was one of the earliest ones I read around wealth, kind of in that time span when Robert Kiyosaki was everywhere. Cool. That's cool. So we'll that's one of the questions I ask later, which is a pivotal book. So you've kind of covered that at one, which is awesome. The other thing I wanted to just kind of point out to the listeners, because it seems to be a really common thread for a lot of us, is that very often those super low moments when things are just really falling apart or coming unhinged, is the time that we have the opportunity to create new channels, new pathways, and really, the breakdown is the breakthrough, as we often say. And I just want to present us all to that, because right now in this global environment, that's happening on a collective level. And whilst in the moment, it can seem like, can it get any worse? Can it get any worse? I think the better question is, how is this going to transform into better? And how can I be proactive in that? And like you then said, which I love too, John, is we may not know right now what the best next step is, but take a gosh darn step in whatever direction is calling you and lean into it, because who knows where it's going to unfold.
Yeah.
And I also love from your story, which is hilarious, because we can kind of make any meaning of anything, right? And I love that you didn't make, destruction and partying really hard is highly profitable, because if you had, that would have been a really different life that unfolded from that 30 grand story. But it's cool that you took it and made it mean what you made it mean. Now, you're a high performance coach. What does that really mean? I'm just curious, like what is it that makes someone high performance versus not high performance?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is like greatness. Greatness is a type of excellence that separates someone from the status quo. So high performance is all about chasing greatness in any field. It is about excellence in any field. So currently working with Olympic athletes, currently working with special forces, to take them to a higher level. They're already high level, and to take them higher financially. If you want to achieve greatness financially, we know this. Some people listening may or may not know, but it really comes down to mindset.
Yes.
It all starts in your head. So high performance mindset, wealth, really I'm just a mindset coach, but I do help, I do help with wealth specifically.
And we are going to get into wealth, but before we do, I'm just curious if you, because what I love about interviewing amazing humans with deep wells of knowledge, is the ability for everyone else to just distill. That's the benefit of reading a book from someone else, is you don't have to do the 20 years of life that they had to do, which is also, why the Emma Field concept exists and why the next generations are the ones that will save the planet, because we've all done the heavy lifting to move the needle to just a fraction, and they're just going to pick the needle up where it is. So if you were going to look at, the athletes that you've trained and the high performance individuals, which I might just point out, even high performance individuals benefit from a coach, right? We know this even with the greatest athletes in the world. But what do you think is the key difference between someone really stuck in, as you said, the status quo or mediocrity, versus someone who makes a big quantum leap forward in performance? Like, if you could say, look, I think ultimately it's this or that, or two things, like what would you say it is outside of wealth, just across the board?
Hunger, desire, drive, passion.
Which is funny. Let's unpack that for a second, John, because you say hunger, desire. Like when I hear that, I'm like, okay, to me, that's life force. I don't know if you agree with that. Like some people just don't actually have a zest, like a vitality, like a...
The same thing. I said passion as well.
Yeah.
And passion is life force. It's the prana. Yeah. It's the, like, this is going to, if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, I literally see the world as energy. So I see the world as energy. I'm not saying I see energy and stuff, but I see the world as energy. I see people. When I see people walking down the road, I can tell how much life force they have because your body is the barometer of your soul. So if your soul is dead, your body's going to be the equivalent to it. So you nailed it. Like the amount of energy, life force, passion we internally cultivate. It's not, I'll be passionate, I need to find my passion. No, you are the passion. Bring it out. Once that happens, that you can do anything. That's
great. And I agree, but I suppose for me, I'm always like, okay, what if when I'm asking these questions, I know sometimes you might be like, Marina, I know you know this, or that's a really simple question, but I just want to help that person, say who's at home, who's like, yeah, I hear you guys, you sound inspiring, that's wonderful. And yet I can't be motivated to get out of bed. I don't have a life purpose like you two seem to have. I don't know what I want to do with my life. And everyone says, when you know what you want to do, you'll have purpose and passion and drive and all these things. And I don't know that. And I know a lot of my, people that I see in the world and work with in the world, that's often where I find them, is they're like, please strike me with the lightning bolt of like purpose. Please strike me with the lightning bolt of like passion, because I don't know where to find it. And it can actually be a real like hole for them. So if you were speaking directly to someone who maybe is listening at home, who feels at the bottom of the well, who feels stuck, who's like, I don't really have a purpose. I don't really know how to cultivate excellence. I don't even know what to chase. I don't have desire. What would you say would be the first rung just to get them moving in the right direction?
The first thing I will say is there's probably not a one size fits all. I know people that have found their passion from trying to commit suicide. They've literally been on death's door, and then it's this realization they've had that there's so much more to life. And then there are people that are like, I have a 12-month program. There are people in my program, it's taken 6 months of trying to like press the right buttons. So, and then they wake up, and then I'll get a message or they'll post in the group like, oh my God.
It's just hit me.
And yeah, and you can tell, you look at them on the next coaching call and they've got life in them.
Yeah.
And it's like that, when someone just looks different, the changes happen. So if you're listening to this, what would be the first steps? The first step, I would stop trying so hard, and I would just do what you enjoy doing. I would be happy, because I believe that if anybody knows or listens to Abraham Hicks, like if we're in the vibration or the mind pattern of, I don't know what my passion is, you're signaling out this very low vibration. And from that point, your life is going to match that. Whereas if you signal out, I'm happy, I'm doing what I love, whether it's playing sports or painting or art or anything, all of a sudden by being in the moment, by being present, by doing something you love without what if this is the right thing? What is this my passion or not? Forget all that. Just do what you love, have fun. Naturally, then your vibration is high. And this is the hard thing to grasp intellectually. But when you just live in that space, the answers will come to you. They just will. And it's, people want the chicken and egg scenario. Like, what comes first? Do I find my passion and then I feel good? It's like, no. Feel good first, and then you'll find your passion.
Yeah. I love that so much. I'm like a ditto, copy paste. Yes. And I think too, the one thing that I would add to it is when they're chasing those things that light them up, you know, the thing that create that bliss energy, is also just remain open. As you said, it'll come to you. So don't hunt it down. Just open yourself to the possibility so that it can. And the less we use our mind for that, I have found it, at least, the better, because we're just over conditioned through that machine. Okay, let's dive into money mindset and wealth mastery, or wealth mindset and money mastery, whichever way it goes. I'm sure it's both. Talk to me about, okay, we've got people who have a lot of money and we have lots of people that don't have a lot of money. Why is that? You know, why is that? Why do we have the haves and the have-nots?
It's values and beliefs. Some people value money more and they have positive beliefs around it, which allows them to earn it and keep it. Some people just don't value it. From their upbringing, for whatever reasons, they do not value money, and they have negative beliefs around it, which keeps them from it. And so...
Are people attuned to that, John? Are they aware that they have negative beliefs?
No. Well, no. I mean... Some are. Some will be listening to this going, oh yeah, I got problems. I need some help, right? I think we've all been there. But then there are some people, like, you walk down the road and they're like, this is just what life is. And if they're not at that level of consciousness yet, where they know that they're a programmed, you know, computer, then they will just stay asleep until either something happens or they actively start to go and search for the truth, search for answers inside themselves.
I don't know if you agree, but something that I often like to say is that if we're not sure where we sit on a spectrum, you know, of am I good or not good, is like your life results literally show you, you know, they show you your beliefs and they show you. So if you, but I also feel like sometimes when we're inside a ceiling and a floor, we don't always know that we're inside the ceiling and the floor, because it's like being the wood in the trees, you know, or the tree in the woods. You kind of don't know. And yet there are, so I'm just going to call out, just for people who might be listening, like if you've never earned above a certain level, you know, that could indicate that there's an invisible ceiling. Would you agree? And that when you say about beliefs, does that mean that potentially it's, you know, that's in their mind growing up that was a good amount of money to make, and yet there are other people making more money? So can you just unpack a little bit of, when you say it's our beliefs and our values, where do we get that from, and how do we even know what ours are?
Yeah, great question. I was on a coaching call at midnight last night, of all blimmin' hours, and it was with it was kind of like this for some people in Serbia, and they weren't happy with their financial situation, and I was like, well, what's stopping you? And they all said, nothing's stopping me. And I went, that in itself doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, okay, let's dive deeper down into like what a limiting belief might be like. The first thing I'll say is that you're absolutely spot on. Your results, in fact, Oprah has a quote. Here it is. I might not get this right word for word, but it is...
Don't butcher Oprah, John. Do not butcher Oprah's quote, okay? No, just kidding.
Check afterwards, okay? You are where you are in life today based on everything you have believed.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, quote, Oprah.
Mic drop.
And so... I think the easiest way is to throw examples out there. So an example would be, rich people are greedy. That's a belief, okay? Or a very strong belief is like, I'll never be wealthy. I'm not good enough. I don't know how to create wealth, so it will never happen for me. Yeah, so those are beliefs we could, and the way to find it is this is the framework I use is, you know, when you think about money, how do you feel? And I always backtrack from emotions, because emotions are they're like the like a symptom, I would call it. So if you think about money, or you think about you being rich, or you think about rich people, look for a negative feeling. So one of those things, whether it's money itself, rich people, or yourself with money, one of those things is going to spark like, oh, that doesn't feel good. Like, yeah, rich people. How do I feel about rich people? Is it a good feeling or a bad feeling? How do I feel about my money situation, good or bad? Look for the bad feeling. And then you're going to have a thought that goes with that feeling. So it's like, okay, what's the thought? Oh, when it comes to me and money, it's like, you know, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy, maybe. I'm not worthy to have the money. And that's when we start getting the thought is ultimately backed by belief. So there's a belief there that maybe you don't feel worthy enough to have it. And until we consciously go through that process, it's an unconscious process. So we will subconsciously reject any opportunity to create more money. And so obviously that's how I find limiting beliefs. I look for the negative emotion, the thought that accompanies it, and then the belief that sits beneath it.
I love that. Nice and simple.
Yeah, right. And my life's work is helping people overcome these limitations, because we talked about it before, our life force, right? So check this out, people. Our life force, our energy, which is the fulfillment of our soul, like that is missing in people that have a lot of limiting beliefs. If somebody his beliefs are like limitless, potential, possibility, I can do anything, you're going to find that they vibrate energetically at this high frequency, and they are full of life and energy, and healthier. Okay. And healthier. When people have all these thoughts inside themselves, like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, it's very, 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 very low energy and unhealthy. So I truly believe that looking at ourselves, finding out where these limitations are, is one of the greatest quests that we can undertake in our whole life.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and I think the way that I often teach that, because I'm teach wholeness and self-sovereignty, is like the parts, like you say. So there are parts that we've made wrong based on beliefs, rules, stories, and therefore we construct thoughts, and we're so often blind to them. They deliberately keep themselves hidden because they want to subconsciously exist for our safety and survival. Because much like even weight or health, and, you know, everything touches everything, you know, the way that we relate in wealth and health is, you know, potentially paralleled or different depending on the unique construct of those beliefs. But I think it's always fascinating that some people will not earn more money because their subconscious mind is that I would be rejected by my family or no longer be in rapport with them because we're the Aussie battler, for instance, if you're Australian, or, you know, or those rich assholes, or whatever the language you heard growing up. Well, I don't want to be an asshole. Who wants to be an asshole? Therefore I won't be rich. So sometimes it's super subtle when it gets laid in, right? And it gets locked down. And the subconscious mind is the one that allows us to flick the kettle, brush the teeth, drive without having to go arm move, leg move. And so it's so powerful once it's in place. But I want to ask you, when someone does that exercise that you just said, you know, a negative feeling, thought, and then belief, what do they do when they find that belief? What's the next step?
Yeah. So let's look at how beliefs are formed, right? So like you said, you're growing up and you hear your parents say, there's not enough money in the world. There's not enough to go around. Or, that person's just greedy, you know, and it's just their own insecurities being projected. And so you shape beliefs based on past experiences.
Yep.
And ultimately, the key word is evidence. There is evidence in your life that is true. For example, when you're a kid, like super young, you believed in Santa Claus because there was evidence that suggested it. You watched cartoons, you read Santa Claus books, your parents told you, presents appeared under the tree. It was like Santa Claus exists in your world.
We were all just lied to and conditioned horrendously, but yes.
Yeah, we really were. And then, I mean, as an adult, most adults come to the realization that, hey, I don't think Santa Claus is true. A kid at school told me, and then I asked my parents. And so evidence supports a new truth. So in the space of those years of your life, you've gone from one strong truth, you know, Santa is real, to he's not. And so when it comes to money, it's all about evidence. And so we really have to look for new evidence. Is what I learned when I was younger, is it true? Is that really true? Or is there a different truth? And part of the way our psychology works, we've got two ways to focus. There's top-down focus and bottom-up focus. This is neuropsychology. And top-down is when for example, if you're, I'm from the military, we'd be sent out on a mission. It's like, you need to go and look for this person. So we had this person's image in our mind. That's who we had to look for. So that's top down focus. We know what we want and we're going after it. Bottom up is you're looking for that person, but then an explosion goes off beside you and all of a sudden your focus is taken away. So bottom up is ultimately the environment steals our focus. And so, wait, how did I get to this? We're going to come full circle.
You were talking about beliefs and how we get to sit in what I call disbelieving. You were saying, is this true? Is it not true? And therefore,
I've got it. So most people rely on feedback from the environment, which is bottom up focus. And the way that works is that ultimately we're just being fed random events. But if we have top down focus, meaning I'm going to specifically try and debunk this belief, if we go and look for the answers, we'll find them because they're out there. And so I recently had a girl, massive money limitations, and it was from her very religious family, always giving their money away. And she's like, this is weird. I don't know why, but I want money. And so she at school had friends that were really rich, and her family and their family didn't get along. Two different things. And so she thought they were assholes. And so she specifically went and she called up all of the rich people from school and said, can we go out for lunch? And she went and met with them, and her belief shifted because she used to think that they were assholes. And she found out that they were actually just the most incredible people, and they gave more money away than her family. So her family were poor and they gave away and they struggled. These families were wealthy, they gave away and they were happy. And she was like, look at that.
I love that. So seeking evidence to the contrary, which does require initially, of course, the mind to be open. And I know for myself, I had to do some work around systemic family systems. That's kind of an area I'm trained in. And I came to realize that I had a maternal block around unfairness in wealth because generationally, I had parents, my maternal line had to leave Russia and then displaced from wealth and then displaced as immigrants. And, the energy is it's not fair. And as a part of that family system or that family constellation, what I ended up doing in my adulthood was constantly creating unfair scenarios to myself. So like when I got divorced, it was like, well, you have more of the money. When business deals would go down and be like, well, that's fine. You can, and it's like it took people from the outside of my ecological reality to be saying to me, Marina, like I mean, it's not even fair. Like fair would be middle and you're going the other side of middle. And I'd hear it initially. And one thing I want to raise here is it took that to kind of come into my brain to go, oh, do I need to look at this? Because to be honest, it felt fine for me, and it felt fine because it was one, in rapport with my lineage, my ancestry, and two, it's in my ecology. So it's like, it is what we do. It's how we live. It's fine. I'll just make more, but I used to just give away more than I needed to. And one thing I wanted to raise, because I feel it's the next part in this question, the sequence of helping people is when I became attuned to it. And I mean, logically, my mind could go, well, it makes sense. Fair is at least the middle, But when it came time for me to keep some for myself versus not, I could feel my whole system still wanting to give that more, like leave myself in an unfair state. It was wired into my system. Yeah. And so what I wanted to speak to is the part of the growth work that requires that we get bloody uncomfortable so that we can then code it as survivable. Because it's one thing to seek the evidence and then we can logically know, I know I shouldn't do that. I know it's not right. And yet your system will want to automatically do it. It's the same with addictions, right? It's the same with all of it. We know we don't want to, and yet we do. Why do we? Because it's coded in the animal of us for survival. So I just would love you to unpack, particularly around money, potentially how this aspect of like discomfort is going. It's not always going to be like, oh, now that I see it, it's all good now. And it comes like there is work to shift the, can you just, speak to that?
There's a phrase that gets thrown around. Some people love it, some people hate it, but you have to fake it till you make it. There is a period of time when you are not yourself because you're resisting your whole being. Yeah. So consciously, you know the answer, but subconsciously you're still the same old habit and wiring. And so in your scenario, you knew consciously you were doing it. And like you said, your whole being felt weird trying to like keep money. And that is why very few people truly change, is because they feel like they're a fraud. They feel like not themselves. The key word would be uncertainty. They feel they're in the unknown of this unfamiliar. And so they turn back to what they know. Well, this is safe. This is comfortable. I'm just going to keep giving my money away, or I'm just going to stay poor. All of this freaking bullshit. And so that ability to fake it until you make it, whether it is through positive talk whilst you're going through it, having a coach is the holy grail. I have a coach. I have many coaches. And during that discomfort is when the biggest transformations are happening. And like at a scientific level, you're literally forming new neural pathways. Your neurons are, we've got neuroplasticity, the ability to rewire ourselves. And so through repetition, through new thoughts, through new actions, we break down old nerve bundles and we rewire new nerve pathways that turn into nerve bundles. And that is when we rewire a new habit.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it becomes natural to be rich, becomes natural to be wealthy. And you look back at yourself and you're like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But that bit in the middle, especially the first time, it just takes will, determination. And, I think meditation is also the most powerful way to rewire the mind, because we have imagination. So we can ultimately think about being wealthy, think about being rich, think about the decisions we would make. And we don't actually physically have to make them in the real world. We can just think about them in the ethereal world, but the brain is still rewiring itself during that process. Yeah. So meditation, visualization is like the gateway to a new you.
Yeah, I love that, John. And I mean, we know that for me, I sit in two worlds, the physical health world and the human potential and mindset world. And I feel actually so do you, just from, the areas. And I don't know if you would agree. I'm certain you would actually, because to me, it's just a truth that so much of what we are able to condition the body to do in a physical world, just a fitness and a health realm, so much parlays as a direct parallel through the mind as well, because it's muscle and it's all the synapses. So I think that getting comfortable being uncomfortable is an important part of our, edging the expansion and expression of ourselves is painful initially, just like tearing muscles is, but then our capacity is greater. And so what you were just saying there about the mind, we know that athletes will often meditate the race, like visualize the race. Visualization, the mind can't, it's more that it can't perceive the distinction. And so that's a really valuable tool. But then do you also agree that the same way that if we were conditioning someone to start into movement, small progress is kind of okay. Like if you'd one day love to really do this around money, you don't have to nail that big thing straight away, but what's the first step around it? Like if you want to save heaps of money, we'll just start saving $1 bloody a week or 10. I don't know. Does it work in the wealth space as well? I'm imagining it does, but can you speak to that about making that expansion a little easier on yourself by making it more survivable by smaller steps?
Of course. And this is just talking about a good solid life principle, which you could apply to fitness, you can apply to wealth, which is that absolutely baby steps. A lot of people see or want the end result and they want it now, they don't get it, and so they quit. But there's two things I'll say with this. The first thing is, in fact, there's three. Take a very small step so you cannot fail, and then reward yourself. Because this is how we build confidence. If we try to do the big thing and we fail, our confidence gets destroyed. Mm-hmm. If we do the little thing and we succeed, we get a little bit of confidence.
Yep.
And through more confidence comes more momentum. And then we can do slightly bigger, slightly bigger, slightly bigger. And it's the same with money. Just show yourself that you can save $5 in a week. Just show to yourself that you can not have a coffee a day. Just show to yourself, just show yourself something so small. And then what you do is at the end of the week, you have one coffee. And you go, you know what? I fucking rock. And this coffee isn't just a coffee. It is a sign. It is a symbol of my excellence and how amazing I am at saving money. And so we reinforce, like positive reinforcement. Again, it starts to hardwire these neural pathways in our body. And it's like, all of a sudden I've gone from, hey, I'm shit with money to, wait a minute, I just saved $20 this week, and you reinforce it with something you love. Yeah.
I think what you're saying there is just pure gold. And I just want to actually slow down and unpack it, because we actually covered this off in the School of Growth's monthly module, which was about motivation and how to create the habit loop. And essentially, when we spoke earlier about belief structures, what we were essentially saying is the conditioning process is stimulus, response, reward, stimulus, response, reward, stimulus, response, reward. That's how everything that you currently do or think or believe or therefore manifest in life even came to be. So when you're suggesting just that tiny little thing that gives a win, a positive feeling, which is what we're wired to want in life most of all, and then repeating that, that's how you get the spiral moving in the right direction. So let's get tangible around money, like really tangible. Now that we've broken down, okay, we get it. We get we're conditioned. We get we're probably got some limits. We now need to go digging for them to unweed them. And we get that we need to make small wins. So, I mean, you know, we're not going to be giving financial advice because that's yours to go and get, everybody. But what do you think are the key fundamentals to shifting? And I think it's important for people to start shifting their mindset around their identity, right? Like, oh, I'm a terrible saver. You know, when people say I've got a terrible memory, well, you're going to continue to have a terrible memory as long as you continue to say that. But to move them towards really genuinely believing, because they have evidence that they're good with money, what are the key principles of someone who's good with money? Like, is it saving? Is it investing? Like, what are the, I don't know, please educate us.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think there are so many strategies to create wealth. So there is people who risk everything in one deal and bang, they hit the big time. There are people that over their whole lifetime acquire a little bit along the way. And so there's definitely not one size fits all. There are people that are willing to take risks. There are people that are younger and could be in a better position to take a risk. So what I want to give everyone, I want to give people very tangible things that they can do with some homework. But ultimately, there are 5 steps, 5 very simple steps to create wealth. The first step is you must save a portion of your income. That's just goes without saying. Your savings must be going up. Step 2 is minimize your expenses. And so when I was starting my second business, really, it was a gym. I'd built a gym, and there was 3 of us that had gone in, and we knew these principles, and we could not afford rent for ourselves. So we slept at the gym at nighttime. When everyone went home, we'd sleep at the gym. And this was in New Zealand, and there was 2 mattresses on the floor, and I was the smallest guy, so I slept in the crack between the 2. There was no cooking facilities, no shower. So in the evenings, we would stand outside, and we'd hose each other off with a bar of soap in our underwear and just hose each other off. And we had an electric frying pan that we just plugged into the wall socket, and we would have baked beans and eggs. So we minimized our expenses massively, but that's what made that business very successful. And, you know, I went to sell my shares on it eventually. We actually duplicated it and sold them. So step 2 is minimize expenses. And a lot of people, and this is where mindset comes in, are not prepared to live like shit for a while. People just, it depends, you know, if you've got money in the bank, you're in a good position. If you don't, like I never did, I wore undies with ripped holes in. Every bit of clothing I had was a hand-me-down. The cars I drove were just the most shitty boxes. But, you know, I was able to pay my mortgage off when I was 30 years old purely because of that sacrifice. So step 2, minimize expenses. And what that's going to do is leave you with a deficit, whether it's a monthly deficit or weekly, whenever you get paid, there's a deficit. Put that deficit into an account. Then step 3 is with that money, doesn't matter how big or small it is, just as long as you stick to your plan, you invest it. And an investment doesn't need to be a house, which costs $100,000, you know, for a deposit. It could be something like buying some stocks or shares. It could be trading bloody cryptocurrency, which is making a lot of money for a lot of people very quickly at the moment. There are so many options for you to start investing, but an investment is ultimately buying assets, something that is going or likely to go up in value. Okay. And so that's step 3. Step 4 is protect the asset. Protect the asset. So whether that's legal structures, I mean, divorce and lawsuits are the 2 biggest home wreckers, right?
Wealth wreckers, you mean?
Wealth wreckers. Whether it's insurance, whether it's once you build some capacity, start playing the longer term game, lower risk, higher sort of safety. And then, so that's step 4. Step 5 is once those assets mature, once the plant grows into a tree and you pick the fruit, don't just eat it all, plant more seeds. Yeah. And so that's how you get out of rock bottom to create wealth. And it takes time. If you already have some capital, then you're good to go. And I've got a strategy. And I teach it in 2 days, but ultimately it's this. We go through people's bank accounts and this is what I want you to do if you're listening, is go through your bank account and highlight all non-essentials. And you can decide what a non-essential is, but what I would say is essential is rent, somewhere to live, but the cheaper the better. It doesn't need to be flash. Food, keep it healthy, but you don't need mass quantities, and it's easier to cook at home. And education in what it is you want to do. If it's create wealth, education and creating wealth, I would say they're the essentials. Everything else, Netflix subscriptions, Spotify, all subscriptions, I'm not pinpointing them, do the maths on them. And what that does is every month you're going to have a surplus. So that's the first part of the capital creation strategy. Second part is this, and this is the fun one. Go through your whole house and look at everything you own. And if there are things there that you have not used in 12 months, clothes, ladies, okay, go through that wardrobe, sell it, put it on Facebook Marketplace and sell it. Any surfboards that are lying around, any stuff. And what people usually do is they have about 2 or 3 grand of stuff just lying around. And so, you get that 2 or 3 grand. Let's just say it's 1 grand. Let's say $1,000. And you've canceled some subscriptions and you have an extra $150 a month. You put that into an investment that is well put together. By the end of the year, that could be 5 grand. And you've done nothing, right? At the moment, I've got an investment that I'm investing in. It's returning about 10 to 20% per month. If you put $1 grand in at 20% per month, in the end of a year, it's almost $9,000. Now that's unheard of, and it blows people's minds, but that's the power of doing this process and then finding a good investment to compound. Because that 9 grand over another year becomes like 40 grand or 50 grand.
John, these are really, I love these tips, by the way, and I'm just going to devil's advocate the kinds of things that I know people might be running in their mind. But before I do, I just wanted to, I did a little solo podcast recently about the long game versus the short game and how and where both can be really valuable. But very often in our lives, the reason, because we're biologically wired for a short game, thousands and thousands of centuries, it's only recently that we've had to consider things like retirement or, anything beyond, the day remaining alive. I feel that we are fighting our biology to master the art of the long game. And, health is a long game and wealth is a long game, and I like what you're saying there, but I'm feeling like there might be people listening who are like, things like when we go down to the essentials, they'll be like, well, I don't want to be rich if it means that I don't enjoy my life. Like I'm sure you've heard people, say something like that, or I'm sure maybe I've said that before, what's the point if I can't afford all the food I want? And what's the point if we can't go on holidays, etc. But what would you say to that? And how would you help people? Because whilst that is true, firstly, would you say that they don't have to cut everything? Like you said, they get to decide what's essential. But secondly, is it a question of like, well, do you really want to create change? Do you like stressing about money every month versus not? And, is that extra coffee really bringing you the comfort? Or I don't know, but can you speak to that psychology of, I don't want to go without now because what's the point in having money if I'm going without? That doesn't make me rich in the day-to-day reality. Yeah,
for sure. I'll hit this from a few angles. The first thing I'll say is like, when it comes to me, it's not actually about me. Me wanting to create wealth I don't have kids or a partner or anything, but it is actually about that. If and when it comes to it, I'm happy with nothing. I'm happy with my ripped undies and a shitty car. If you've got good people around, like that's cool. So it's not about the money. That is not the point. The point is, sure, more freedom, more opportunity, better life, but I wouldn't say more happiness, definitely not. But also I want to break the generational cycle for my family and for my kids. Like I want them to, it does put you in a position of power. And so that's something. The other thing is with the people that don't want to sacrifice it now, don't. But just don't. It's like the cake and eat it too kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Or you can eat half your cake and have half left. And then you're kind of like, don't have a lot of money, but you have enough. I'm not going to tell you how you should live your life. But what I will say is that if you want to become wealthy, and if you've got the capacity to back it up, yes, like you said, the long game, but I mean, get into something that's high risk. If you've got the balls and the capacity, business is high risk, but you also have people becoming millionaires in 12 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's just so many ways to skin the cat, so to speak. You definitely don't have to sacrifice it all now, or that's my personality type. I'm all or nothing. So I'm like, I want that. And if it means I have to live on baked beans, then I'll do it. Yeah. If that's not your personality type, that's cool. But like we said earlier, if the results in your life aren't matching up, then maybe you're the problem. You know what I mean? Like maybe the way you're living is the problem.
Well, yeah, I know for sure. In my 20s, I worked, my wealth creation has always been through business. And then, well, actually that's not true, property, but the divorce, as you said, cost me a lot of my accrued wealth because I chose to keep the business, and there was a lot of other scenarios going on there. And in any case, definitely was attached to my maternal issues that I had to really work through. And I'm so glad I did, because up until then it was an uphill battle. But what I wanted to speak about was, in my 20s being such a high consumer, like I was full sold consumerism. And really it wasn't until I stepped away from mainstream media and really started to minimalize my life. And I just wanted to speak to anyone listening who's like, oh, but I can't do without my shoes, and I can't do without my this and that and my 20 sets of that. And I think it's okay to love the things we love. And I think it's okay to bring joy to ourselves through material things. I think that's fine. If you love cashmere cardigans and you love straws, maybe I'm speaking about myself, I don't know. But the point is that's okay, but it's also a very freeing experience to get rid of everything. And I think until you've really cleansed yourself of attachment even to wealth, or even, what you perceive as wealth, because we have a lot of people living in this society who are living well beyond their means, who will, I imagine, in this economic environment, have to deal with what it means to really not have any of that, because there is no other choices. But I think that what comes from that is a freedom. And when we were speaking a moment ago about, the long game, the short game, and I love what you're saying about, the different ways people can approach it. But at the end of the day, is it valuable, do you think, for people to just really sit down around wealth in particular and money in particular and get clear on a why? Like when you talk about your family and whatnot, I know for me, again, I'm not someone who needs a lot of money in the bank to feel secure. I've had no money in the bank. I've had lots of money in the bank, and my sense of security is independent of that. I've slept with the wolf at my door for many years around wealth and near bankruptcy because of the divorce, and I sleep like a baby. So for me, wealth doesn't affect my day-to-day joy. But I had to actually create a why around it that was about freedom, because freedom is my highest value. I wanted to take my children to see the world. I personally want to do positive and impactful things in the world. So really knowing your values and then kind of bringing them in, because my family was the kind of family that was like rich assholes. Wealth was kind of judged. So I had to create wealth and bring it into something I value deeply, which is being of service in the world. So do you think that's an important step, like getting clear on what's your why? Like, why even look at doing all these things if it does feel like work? Until you've got a why, that sacrifice just won't make sense. But maybe once you do, it will.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The more we can reflect on our why, which is our reason for putting ourselves through the sacrifices, then we're going to be disempowered to it. In fact, a great exercise to do for anyone who's not motivated is to write down and consciously feel into 50 reasons why having wealth would be beneficial. And I always ask this question as well, go one step further. So it's like, cool, you've got wealth, let's say you've got $1 million, right? And I'm saying, cool, write all these reasons why you would like that. And it's like, well, because I could do this. And then I say, well, go one step further. Some people would be like, well, because I would have freedom, for example, for yourself. Well, one step further, what would you do with that freedom? Well, I would do this. And who else would that benefit? And if you just follow it one step further, it will touch every single area of your life.
Yeah.
It will make you healthier. It will make you freaking more fulfilled. It's got the potential to do everything. And then it's like, well, why wouldn't you go for wealth?
Yeah. And then also, as you say, then you're at a higher vibrational frequency, which is just generally how we all save the world, in my opinion. I just had something come to mind. What was it? Yeah, I was just thinking too, you know, people who are caught in that stuck habit of, you know, paycheck to paycheck and are like, well, cool, yes, it'd be nice. And they have the why. But I think, you know, something I like to do for myself and for clients is get really clear on that why, but also get really real about the reality that isn't so rose-colored. You know, like a lot of people, like, I think you know, I was saying last night to someone, I feel like particularly right now on the planet, our biggest disease is coming from the epidemic of complacency. You know, we're not quite uncomfortable enough, and therefore we're not taking powerful action. So and, you know, and we're going through a phase where that might be a reality that I think will bless us, a deep discomfort to create positive action. But if we really sit there and you think about how, you know, and this is about health and wealth and whatever it is, like on the day-to-day, are you stressed about money? On the day-to-day, are you already going without things you want that you wish you could have? On the day-to-day, do you lack freedom? Are you dependent on your paycheck, on a job you hate? Whatever it is, like, get real. Because I think sometimes we're like, oh, it's not so bad. And we then go and numb ourselves, right, with consumerism, social media, you know, the substances. So maybe that stick in the carrot can kind of help people move forward, because I think that if we can have good people have the wealth, they're only going to do good things in the world with it.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And money is not it's a freaking, now it's just digits. It's not even anything. And then, you know, it's paper notes or coins or whatever. It's not inherently good or bad. There are just a-holes out there, greedy people out there. And then there are people, some of the most inspiring people in my life personally are freaking rich. And when I was sleeping in the gym, I was talking before, I was sleeping in the gym, a lady came into the gym and trained in the gym, and she was very wealthy, like stupid. And she's like, you know, oh, where do you live? I was like, oh, I sleep here. And she's like, she's like, well, I've got a massive mansion on the beachfront. Why don't you live with me? And I was like, I probably can't afford it. She's like, no, for free. And I was like, what? And this lady took me under her wing, and I lived with her on the beachfront. And then she eventually sold that house and goes, well, I feel like you're part of my family now, so I want you to live with my ex-husband. He had an even bigger mansion on the beachfront. I went and lived with him. And I'm talking like 8 figures a year income, doing, you know, very well. And then he's like, I'm moving to a new city to open up a new business. Can you house sit for me? So I house sitted this like 11-bedroom bloody mansion on the beach.
Sounds terrible. I don't know how you put up with that. Bad. Jeez.
But I mean, yeah. And so there's people like that have money that are just so incredible people.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't, I mean, wealth, I think what we've done as a society is we've collapsed the two domains, right? We've collapsed wealth with like.
It's what you were saying before. People's
two completely different things.
People's own insecurities are projected. That is it. And like you said, oh, I don't need that. It's like, no, but how fucking good would it be?
Yeah.
And sometimes I want to really, you know, sometimes I want to shake people and just be like, be honest.
Yeah. Like, sorry.
You know, no. I mean, I'm pretty much just getting all fired up now.
Ranting. We're just ranting. It's like, if you want it, go and get it. But it's true. I mean, it's the same thing with health, John. You know, people are like, you know, we're not so unhealthy, but I know for myself, it's like, if you could only feel what it feels like to wake up with vitality and have it all day long and feel strong in your body and capable in your body. It's not about 6 packs or looking great. It's like that feeling is literally priceless. And that sense of feeling truly free in life, knowing that, you know, you have enough. And for me, to be honest, the sense of freedom I have around wealth these days is not about necessarily how much money I make or I have, but rather my own innate capacity to create wealth, which, you know, I know because I've been through the everything, nothing. Now I'm like, I'm good. Bring what may. I know I've got the capacity and, you know, the creativity to pivot, to flex, and to have the resilience to bounce back. And that's priceless, because that's that sense of like, it doesn't matter what the external, you know, you said before, it's happening. It's like, I know that in here we're good.
Yeah.
So I think there's so much to be gained beyond just extra money in the bank by doing the things that you've discussed, which I just want to recap and as we start to wrap up, but you've given some really tangible tools and I want them not to be lost in a lot of the esoteric stuff that we've also discussed. So you're really saying to people to, I'm going to maybe go back to front, but sit down and go, why do I want to be wealthy? And write out 50 to 100 reasons. And then the knock-on effect of what would having me have more money really do for me, for the people I love, and for the world at large? Yes.
Yeah. And I would say to them as well, how would it feel to be that person?
Yep.
How
okay. I love it. How would it feel? And then you also mentioned to really sit down and analyze your relationship with money, to tap into any negative feelings or constraints in the body, whether that's physical or just emotional, and then to follow the thought that's attached to it and come down to the belief. Then go and start looking for evidence to the contrary, which is a practice I call disbelieving. So sitting and disbelieving, is that true? Is it true just for me or for other people? How could that be not true? And just really flip it around and mold it around until you bust it wide open. And then, taking the actions, even small actions, you said, just one step. And from what you've said today, I feel that you're saying, start saving. And that was a big thing for me, particularly when I was going through a period of time where there wasn't a lot of money, because I was cleaning out debt and cleaning out stuff I wasn't aware was there. And I still remember the principles, and I was like, okay, I've got to put something away. And it was initially, just a little bit each week. And then it's the benefit of technology is you can direct debit this straight out. You don't even need to feel it. You don't actually have to do it. You just have to do it once, and then it happens. And then you see that bank account a couple months later and you're like, oh, sweet. And it's a great reminder. So make it easy to win. You then said, this is great remindering for me, because I like to think I've got an excellent memory, and I like to say I've got an excellent memory because then I have an excellent memory, self-fulfilling prophecy. I think you said that you need to minimize your expenses. I feel like that was second. The first one was...
the first one is save. I was
save, put the saving away. That was one of the 5. Then minimize your expenses, so reduce your costs. And then it was invest the savings in something that's going to be wealth creating. Then you said protect the asset. And then you said reinvest the fruits of the asset as it grows. Those 5. I love that. Thank you. And then the other things that we've really talked about have been...
I would say also reward yourself.
Yes, you did. You said that.
You need to reward yourself for positive behavior.
I agree.
Because it's your life. Like, when you're good, look in the mirror and acknowledge how good you are and reward yourself. And that reward can be, I have a cup of tea. That's my reward. When I have a cup of tea, instead of just drink, it's like, it's a moment. So sorry, carry on.
No, and you also said to go through your house and sell things, and, for the hoarders out there, like just really cleanse that. That can be so freeing. It can be troublesome as well if you're used to holding on to things, but selling things, if you're like, I don't have money to invest, I don't have money to save, sell anything and just start saving, as little as possible, or as little as is available, as much as is possible, right? And just starting. I love it. All right. I feel that is a lot for everyone to work with. We're going to link to everything that you do so people can, follow you for all the daily inspiration and advice you give, and then follow and join your programs when they're next open. I wanted to finish off with a couple of quick fire questions. The first of which is, for you personally, John, like what are you working on for you right now? Like you're obviously someone who's achieved a lot and you're, wired for success as it is, but we're always all working on something. So what's alive for you that you're unpacking and unfolding at the moment?
Yeah, great question. It's how I show up as a coach and a speaker. It's I quite often personally talk principles. I'm like, never give up. And for me, that's it. If I just do that, I'll be successful. But a lot of people don't work off principles. They want to know, well, how do I do it? And so for me, my speaking usually involves principles, and I'm really trying so hard now to speak in examples, to speak in metaphors, to speak in ways that relate to other people's minds. So that is something that it's so unnatural for me, but I need to master if I want to, be the best.
To impact more people. Yeah. Because I think that's really true. Otherwise it just remains an ideology, right? Something that pumps them up in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how it doesn't work for everyone. I mean, it's worked for me my whole life, but yeah,
But it would work for some. And actually that's one thing we kind of touched on we didn't really fully unpack though, but I think it's true in every realm of life, is that it's really important to know that you are a unique nuance, right? Like we're a myriad of so many different things, family, the intersection of us as an individual, whilst we're all connected, we're unique. And you talked about that around wealth. And I always say with movement, for instance, it's like people go, what's the best way to train? The way that you like, the one that you will actually do, you know, like whether that's, if you hate weight training, I'm not going to tell you weight training. If you love, you know, hip hop dancing, just go bloody hip hop dance, you know? And then once you're fallen in love with that, if you want different results, that habit can be adjusted slightly. And I know you mentioned that around wealth, and I agree with you in learning in general, we all take to it differently, and that's okay. So some people though who, you know, love principles, they've already learned and applied so much, I'm sure, from everything you've done. Okay, you as a coach, what about, if you could rapid fire, what is your number one tip that you would give someone today as the number one way they could elevate their energy? What would you suggest?
Exercise, run.
Yep, move. Yeah.
Dance, music, even. Like.
Yeah, and actually, it was in the top of my head, and I didn't mention it because we kept rolling. But you know, before when we were saying when someone's just really not in a state of passion and no desire, and we talked about, you know, opening ourselves to that and just following the bliss. One thing I always kind of come back to is, don't underestimate you as the vessel. Like, health is so important, not because it's some, you know, desired outcome, but because unless we're clean in the way we eat and the way we move, like, this is a high performance machine. And if you want to really optimally perform in the world, I don't know if you agree, but start by just eating better, drinking better, sleeping better, moving better. Your thoughts are going to be better because they're growing out of the soil that is so much richer.
Yes. Yeah. I always talk about the chicken and egg approach. Yeah. It's like people like, I'm so unmotivated, so I won't train. It's like, no, you have to train, and then you'll cultivate more motivation. Yeah. Same with this. People are like, oh, I feel like shit, I'm going to eat shit. That's just going to continue forever. You need to break that cycle by eating good, because you're never going to feel good eating shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like music, I would say, would be the one thing that can get you started. But honestly, all the rewards are on the other side of your limited mindset. So, you know, Mel Robbins has the 5-second rule. Yeah. If you think you should do it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go, right? Yeah. And that's to stop what we just said. People's low vibration, low thought is going to equate to more low life.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so move. I like it. Obviously super pro that, so thanks for promoting movement. What about your number one tip for elevating empowerment, that sense of confidence and I can do it, and, you know, sovereignty, really? Like, what would be your number one tip for elevating empowerment?
I would say reflect on your past achievements. Reflect on things you've done in the past more often. And each morning I have an achievements. I have a goal book kind of thing I have. It's called the Book of Life. And there's an achievements page. And if I'm ever feeling unworthy, if I'm ever feeling shit, that page changes my tune for the whole day. Because I'm actually like, oh, wow, like I am actually good.
Yeah. So is that really a really tangible reference to what we mentioned earlier, which is to feel empowered? Go back to the evidence that you are a capable, empowered being. So
yes,
the things that
I was going to give the principle, but then I was like, wait, don't give the principle. So I gave the example.
Yeah. But so seeking the evidence, which is, you know, going back and going, look what you did here. Look what you've done that. And that's also that shifting the mindset and the reticular activating to focus on the fact that you are empowered, which then gives us the feeling of empowerment, which is the frequency of empowerment, which is empowerment. I love it. That's a great tip, by the way. And I know that's an amazing course that you do, the Book of Life, so people can go and do that with you. But I love that idea of having a thing that you can reference. It's almost like an individual cheerleader pick me up. That's so cool. Everyone should do that. Make note, everyone. Okay, and then the last one is, what would be your number one tip for elevating people's expression in the world? So whether this is impact or influence or just relating in a more truly aligned, authentic way.
Cool. My friend Joel Brown has this amazing framework about impact. And it follows a pathway of certainty, something, impact. Anyway, certainty is the first thing. And it's like, I speak to so many people that want to help others. And it's part of human nature, right? Contribution. But they don't know who they are. They're not grounded in themselves. There's no certainty there. And so until we cultivate certainty in who we are, we really are going to struggle to make a significant impact. So the key thing I would say for anybody that wants to create an impact, I would say really know who you are and what you stand for. Is that the question you asked? How can you make more impact?
Well, just how can people elevate their expression in the world? And really what you're saying is like figure out.
Okay, wait. I'm going to give you tangible. Okay, let's go tangible.
Let's do it.
Instead of principle. Experiential learning. So it's like do a Facebook Live. Here's your homework. Do a Facebook Live and talk for a minimum of 5 minutes, maximum of 15 minutes of what you stand for, what you believe in. And on the other side of you doing that will be the reward. That's when you'll get the evidence, so to speak, okay, that you are worthy of creating an impact.
Yeah, doing hard things. I love that. Thank you. And final question is really just if someone missed the entire podcast that we just did, and all they hear is the next sentence that you're about to share with us, or you could use the metaphor of this is the message in the bottle, or the little earwig that everyone on the planet gets to hear from you, John Templeton. And this is kind of like a distilling of like, hey guys, actually scrap everything. This is the most important thing. Just know this about life, know this about you, know this as it's a universal truth that you really feel sums it all up. No pressure or anything.
That you, and I mean you personally, to the person listening to my voice now, you personally can achieve anything you want in life. And I know that doesn't really sum up the whole podcast.
No, it doesn't have to sum up the podcast.
That's what I want people to know.
Yes.
That's what I want people to know is that you really can. And if that's something you want, reach out to Marina or myself, because we believe that's true about you as well. And we can be the evidence that you need until you believe it yourself.
I just got chills. So the message is you, as in each of us, can really be anything we want in the world.
Absolutely anything.
Yeah, I agree. And I will actually say that is the benefit of a coach. Anyone that is even 2 rungs higher on the ladder knows you can get 2 rungs higher on the ladder, and, from a PT perspective, even we hold a container and a capacity of what you're capable of that's bigger than you currently hold. So that's where we grow and we stretch. And that is actually a limitless cycle of potentiality, isn't it? So thank you, John. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, for your story, and for really the tangible you've given today. I know that if people apply even half of what you've shared today, their relationship to money and themselves, because all parts affect all parts, will really shift. And so guys, remember, as always, the most important thing is not hearing this and doing the work isn't just listening to the podcast. Doing the work is going, what can I apply in my life? What can I actually action in my life? And John has given you so many gifts. So John, thank you for who you be in the world and what you do in the world. You're just amazing. I have deep respect and reverence for you. Thank you for your time. And if there's anything you want to finish off on, otherwise just thank you.
No, the only thing I'll say, Marina, is thank you too. And the feeling is absolutely mutual. And for anybody lucky enough to know this woman or be involved with this woman, it's something to treasure. So yeah, thank you. I'm very grateful.
Bless. All right. Take care, everyone.